the Bamsters Rated R podcast for all your bacon needs.
Hey yo, and welcome back to another episode of the Bamsters Rated R podcast. This week, in episode 138, TJ and I are going to take over the entire episode for our comic shop talk segment. And we're going to, as Bam would put it, fill your delicious ear holes with several items comic book and comic character related. So sit back, strap in, and enjoy. But just before we get going, if you like what you hear, a thumbs up is always appreciated. And if you're new to what we do and would like to keep up with new releases, remember to subscribe to the show via your podcast app. Or if you're watching the game footage on YouTube, you can subscribe there as well. And you might want to click on the little bell if you want to get notifications when new videos come out. In addition to our weekly segment, we also publish game reviews and previews that you might find interesting. Without further ado, Tej?
Did he say strap in or strap on?
Alright, so first up, something you saw. What was this? Something out of New York Comic Con with Brian Micheal Bendis?
Yes, the best news that I could have ever gotten regarding comics right now, and I want to start off on this because it's something really, really cool and something I'm really excited about, but truthfully, it's also something that leads us into an area of problems regarding publishing. But first, let's talk about the good. Brian Micheal Bendis is launching a Teen Plus line of comics called Wonder Comics, and it's going to be fully curated by Brian Micheal Bendis. And for those of you who are old enough to remember in the ancient times of the year 2000, when Brian Micheal Bendis and Mark Bagley launched Ultimate Spider-Man over at Marvel Comics, I mean, it was huge, and looks like he's trying to recapture lightning in a bottle a second time, and Wonder Comics is going to be, from what I can tell, it's going to be pretty cool. There's going to be a couple different titles announced in this. One of them, they're going to be launching a brand new Dial H for Heroes series, and for anybody that digs classic DC stuff, the H dial and all that's always been a really cool concept. Sam Humphries, who was the writer on Green Lanterns and on Harley Quinn, is going to be writing that along with Joe Quinones, who's done Black Canary and Satana Bloodspell. He's done Batman 66 Meets Archie, ton of stuff. So that'll be super, super cool, and it's going to be, it's described as an updated take on the Silver Age classic concept, so that's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a series called Naomi, which I don't know much about, but it's going to be co-written by both Bendis and David Walker, who wrote Cyborg for DC, but he also wrote Power Man over at Marvel, and his stuff is a lot of fun. It's going to be drawn by Jamal Campbell. From what I can tell, the only thing I can tell is that the lead character is an African-American teenage girl, so that's really cool. From there, and this is where I think things are going to get interesting, there is, for the first time ever, there's going to be a monthly series for Zan, Jaina, and Gleek, their pet monkey. Yes, that's right. The Wonder Twins from Super Friends are getting their own series. So this is going to be kind of cool. They've never had their own comic before. While they have appeared in comics before, they were originally created for the Super Friends cartoon. So to see them have their own comic is going to be pretty interesting. They only had appeared previously in the Super Friends comic, but then as far as DC continuity proper, there's, I think, 2 or 3 issues of Extreme Justice in the 90s. Yes, I said Extreme Justice in the 90s. And then they appear, I think, in like 2 issues of the original Young Justice series back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Oh yeah, that's right. Speaking of Young Justice, the best part about this is that Brian Micheal Bendis, along with artist Pat Gleason, are bringing back Young Justice. Now, I know you've heard us talk about the return of Young Justice. I'm not talking about cartoon Young Justice. I'm talking about the best Young Justice. I'm talking about Connor Kent as Superboy, Bart Allen as Impulse, And the greatest of all time, the return of Tim Drake as Robin. That's right, the Young Justice. The comic book Young Justice is coming back to remind all you young whippersnappers what Young Justice really is. And with Bendis being one of my absolute favorite writers, I could not be more excited to see someone like him bring 3 characters who mean so much to me personally back. The fact that Bendis recognizes the fact that, let's be real, Tim Drake is the greatest Robin of all time, and you will hear me say that in every episode, is so exciting. This isn't him as Red Robin. It's not a new name. He's Robin. Superboy is going to be wearing an updated version of his outfit from the 90s with the leather jacket. Tim as Robin is going to have an updated version of his 90s costume, and Bart as Impulse will have an updated version of his costume as well. But they're still going to be true to the spiritual looks of those characters in the original Young Justice comics. And if you read Ultimate Spider-Man in the early 2000s all the way through, you know how good Brian Micheal Bendis is at writing teenage superheroes. So first, let me say that this is awesome. And this is also going to be a great way to potentially get teenage readers reading comics. Anybody who says, and this is a big thing, anybody who says that kids don't read comics, that's an absolute lie. Kids are absolutely reading comics. Kids aren't reading superhero comics.
There is so much more now to see than there was like when we were growing up.
Yeah. The book sales don't lie. You can track this stuff online easily. Kids and teenagers aren't reading superhero comics. They are reading other comics. When you look at sales for comics as a whole, some of the biggest sellers are, books that Raina Telgemeier does, like Smile and Sisters and Girls and all that. And then Dave Pilkey, who does Dogman and Captain Underpants. Those are some of the biggest sellers for the comics industry right now. And my hope is that a line like Wonder Comics is going to get kids with characters who are relatable and fun and are going through the same stuff as them, which is why, especially a character like Tim Drake, why Robin, Superboy, and Impulse meant so much to me when I was growing up, and Static and all these other teen heroes. And what made Young Justice special was Teen Titans was a superhero book, and Young Justice was 3 kids who happened to be superheroes coming together and hanging out and just happening to fight bad guys. So when you make this stuff feel real, when you make it feel tangible, like I always talk about, you're going to get kids reading something that they wouldn't have read before. So, number one, that's really exciting because that's all that young readers are looking for. Some are characters who are like them. So there's that to think about. But here's where I was talking about things being problematic. And hear me out for a moment on this. So this is going to be a part of their line, like we said, Wonder Comics, right?
Okay.
So it's very cool that Brian Micheal Bendis, especially being a father of like 3 or 4 kids, if I'm not mistaken, sees the need for comics to veer for a younger audience. That is absolutely important because this industry does not survive without new readers coming into it, right?
Okay. Catch
a kid when they're young, they're going to be a fan for life. I'm a perfect example of this. Because even when I hate comics and they make me mad, I still love comics. But the problem going forward with this is everything at DC right now is an imprint. There's the DC titles, and then there's Young Animal, which is kind of like their new version of Vertigo. Then you've got DC Inc. and DC Zoom, which is going to be like young adult and middle grade imprints. And then there's, Black Label, which is their mature line of stuff. And I'm not trying to be old man on the mountain here, but when I was growing up, there was DC Comics and there was Vertigo.
So maybe they have a little too much variety?
It's not about having too much variety. It's about not having an actual destination. That there's so much going on that they don't necessarily seem to have a clear vision of who they are as a company. There's this idea of, wow, here's all these things. There's something for everybody. But none of it doesn't feel focused or dialed in. It once again, feels like grasping at straws. Everything that Wonder Comics is going to be, to me, why do you need DC Ink and DC Zoom? You can catch all those same readers if you combined all those imprints together.
Well, and I want to take it back for just a quick sec for those who don't work in the industry or maybe are unfamiliar with the terminology. Define imprint.
Well, I would hope if you're listening to us, you know what an imprint is. But, no, an imprint is... it's kind of like a subline of comics within an already established publishing group. So for years, DC had Vertigo. That was an imprint of theirs. So it was published by DC, but it was just another branch from the tree, you know? And with most of the Vertigo titles, they weren't continuity in the DC universe. And most of them weren't even DC characters. It was just very, you know, cool, different kind of creator-owned stuff or stuff that could be more than just superhero comics. Because when you think superheroes, you clearly think DC. You know, their characters are the most iconic characters in this industry. And no disrespect to Marvel, because they have the most amazing characters in the world as well. But when you think superheroes, you think DC.
Yeah, usually the first couple that come to mind are like Superman,
Batman, you know, you
Wonder
think
Woman. So
first female character you think is Wonder Woman, first kid hero you think is Robin. It always works.
You know
that
what's
way.
funny is you say that, but the first kid hero I always think of is Peter Parker.
But he's not a kid.
Not anymore.
The name implies that you don't think of him as a kid. That's the point. You say Peter Parker, but you didn't say Spider-Man. So you immediately circumvent the name Spider-Man.
Well, you said Tim Drake. You didn't say...
No, I said first kid hero you think is Robin. Well, I said first female hero you think is Wonder Woman. First kid hero you think is Robin. And you can play it back, too.
I'm going to have to check that later, because I'm sure you said Tim Drake.
I talk about Tim Drake, but the first kid hero you think is Robin, because there have been 3 Robins.
Well, kids growing up nowadays might think Damien.
Yeah, but on his toy packaging, it always says Damien. It doesn't say Robin. So...
I'm just throwing that in there to mess with you.
But the point of all of this insane rambling is the fact that there's too much going on, and they still have yet to figure out what they're doing with their main line of comic books, with their main DC Universe continuity. Now, some people don't want to read a continuity-based thing, because that's a lot of work, that's a lot of stuff to keep going. At least to some people, I don't necessarily agree with that. Some people just want to be able to go in and pick up a book, that's it, and leave. And that's more than fair too, which is why you create something like an imprint. But when you've got 4 imprints along with your main line of titles, it comes off as, number 1, it's sensory overload. Number 2, it hurts the wallet. But number 3, it feels like you're hoping that something is going to work.
Haha, the old throw the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And now, don't think that I'm sitting here insulting anybody who is working on all of this. Because whether it's something that I like or not, whether it's a comic that I'm going to read or not, they're real. And, you know, I make fun of Damien all the time. I talk about how I don't like the character. There really is something for everybody. And I want us to be going into comics with that mentality. But, I don't know. I have a hard time with their strategy of, you know, 4 different imprints to hit every demographic. My thing is, your comics should hit every demographic.
Yeah, I can agree with that, yeah.
You know, I didn't get to say it last time, and this is, you know, on topic, but one of the problems that DC tends to have, and I'm not trying to rag on DC. You guys have heard me say it before. I have 3 DC characters tattooed on me. I love these characters so much, but I think it's why I feel the way I feel with all of this. And part of the problem is they were so ready to tell you that Batman Damned by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo is a mature audience's book. But if not for the fact that Batman says shit at one point and you see Batman's penis, it feels like just kind of standard Batman horror story. The only thing that makes it mature is just drawing that scene of, for some reason, Batman getting out of the Batmobile and getting naked in the Batcave. So we're okay with that, but we have to change Dick Grayson's name because Dick is a bad word. They don't, there's no clear direction for anything. For anything. And it is frustrating. It's frustrating as a reader. I used to be a retailer at one point. It would be frustrating for me as a retailer. At some point, they have to bring someone in to right the ship.
I've even made the jokes, and I know you've heard the jokes hundreds of times, but really changing Dick Grayson's name?
Yeah,
really?
But then they have no problem.
No, I know, but I'm just...
Oh, they literally changed it this month. He's Rick Grayson.
Oh, they changed it to Rick.
They changed it. Now, granted, he's got some stupid amnesia nonsense because of him getting shot in the head or whatever, and all of it... Look, and gosh... No disrespect intended, because, you know, Fabian Nicieza, who's co-writing it with Scott Lobdell, those two guys are huge parts of me growing up on X-Men in the 90s. But none of this feels like there's real direction for the character. It just feels the way it's been for years, with the consistent destruction of Dick Grayson as a character because certain people up top don't like that character as Nightwing. So we're just getting to the point, and I'm going to say it now, and I know we've kind of gone on multiple topics here, but I do think that all this needs to be kind of talked about. I think we're at a point where you just got to kill off Nightwing. I love that character. I love Nightwing. Dick Grayson is one of my favorite characters of all time, but at a certain point, it's torture.
Put him out of your misery.
Really?
So I'm gonna go back though. He gets amnesia, and other people rename him, or does he decide to change his name?
It's not so much. Well, it's kind of amnesia, but no, he's going by Rick.
Right, but is that a decision he's made, or somebody else made for him?
Because he sees his name as Richard Grayson. You remember, a kid growing up in a circus, you know, a name like Dick, it's anachronistic, just like growing up in a circus. You know, that's what makes the character work. You know, I don't know if I could see any other character, other than maybe Dick Tracy, obviously, with the name Dick in modern comics, but it's always worked for Dick Grayson as a character because he is, as far as his childhood goes, that character is the most anachronistic character in modern comics. So he absolutely should have a name that feels like a kid from the 40s would have. You know, because what kid grows up in a circus?
Nowadays, yeah, wow.
You know? So it works for the character, but I don't know, like I said, this has been a long rant. I'm excited that Young Justice is coming back. I'm excited that there are comics being put out there for younger readers and for teen readers, but I do think that the main line of comics needs to be more accessible, and if there's going to be a mature line of comics, it has to stop being what a 14-year-old's idea of mature is. Nudity and excessive cursing doth not make mature. I think there has to be more to the content. And shock value nudity, which is what that was.
Yeah.
It wasn't nudity for the sake of the story. It was all shock value. And shame on them for that. I want there to be a greater sense of awareness at DC, and to remember that these characters are bigger than their creators.
We're going to shift over to the streaming part of the show, apparently, because the next couple topics are all about these characters on streaming services. So we'll stick with DC to start with, and casting information on Swamp Thing. Man, they're moving right along with this.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about it a couple episodes back, and there wasn't a lot of information, and now it's like, so Crystal Reed, who was on Teen Wolf and Gotham, she has been cast as Abby Arcane. They've got a slew of casting announcements that I was going through. Maria Stein, who was in Straight Outta Compton, has been cast as Liz Tremaine. Mm-hmm. Then Madame Xanadu is being played by Gerald Prescott. I hope I said that right. And then
which one, Xanadu or Gerald?
Gerald, yeah.
You're not worried about Xanadu.
Well, that one I feel like I said right.
You pronounced it wrong.
Oh, did I?
No, not at all.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, come on now. Was it Olivia Newton-John do a song about that? That's reaching back into the olden days, as my little one would call it. But a couple of, and not to disparage any of the other actors already listed, but a couple of what I think are pretty big gets for the show.
Definitely.
Jennifer Beals and Virginia Madsen joining the cast as well. So.
Yeah, I think those are definitely huge gets, especially for a streaming service. But I think Warner Brothers also recognizes that streaming services are definitely where it's at. People are making the jump to kind of a streaming television rather than cable. Swamp Thing is a hugely popular character, and quite honestly, one of the first DC characters out of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman to make the jump from comic to screen, and has had multiple iterations outside of the comics. I mean, you had the Wes Craven movie with Adrienne Barbeau, and that movie is super rad. Then there's the sequel with Heather Locklear, which is not so rad. And then there was the live-action TV series, which I'm still a huge fan of. It's, it's not the greatest show, but there were a lot of really cool TV shows at that time as far as, like, horror and sci-fi were going, and Swamp Thing, I mean, totally got 9-10-year-old me, so that was cool. And then there was the 5-episode cartoon series. So, I mean, Swamp Thing has had multiple iterations outside of the comics that most people don't think about. So, hopefully this one is leaps and bounds ahead of it all. No disrespect to Wes Craven, because that movie still rules. But, if this does well, that opens the doors for other characters.
Do we think... I don't know, just the way that it seems like a lot of things are going, I almost feel like when we see Swamp Thing, it's not going to be mostly practical. I think it's going to be mostly CGI. And I would like to see more practical, like, effects and makeup and type for something like that. I think CGI enhancements.
Yeah, I think a strong combination of the two is great. I think... guys like Howard Berger and Gregory Nicotero are constantly still doing practical makeup and effects. They did it a bunch during, Masters of Horror. Then, I mean, they're doing it for Walking Dead. And there's still a healthy mix of both practical and CGI on Walking Dead. So I'm sure Swamp Thing will end up doing something like that. At least, I think if they're smart, they will. Because you do want to see... whoever is going to be the Swamp Thing, you want to see them moving. You want to see them interacting.
Yeah, that'd have to be a pretty big guy to be cast at too, though.
The actor who played Swamp Thing, and I want you all to know that Drac is looking at me. I am doing this without looking it up. The actor who played Swamp Thing in both movies and the TV series was actually a former stuntman turned actor named Dick Durock. And he was a pretty big dude. And for the TV show, actually, the makeup got better than it was in the movie. But the movie, he moved cool in it. So, who knows? Maybe they find a way to kind of hit all the marks. But, I'm also cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, well, I'd say so far my only concern with that show is that they just go the full CGI route because, maybe it's easier. I don't know. But then again, not necessarily easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that is looking up. It should be on the DC streaming service sometime in 2019. Haven't seen any kind of... more of a narrowed down date than just 2019 at this point. Mm-hmm. But since we're talking about DC streaming services, and a lot of the stuff we saw, a lot of the images early on were very promising for this. We were very positive about it. You've now seen the first, 3 episodes?
I think 2 or 3 episodes of Titans.
Yeah, I know that the 4th one is out.
Yeah.
I don't know if the 5th one's out yet. I've only seen the first 3.
5th one is next Friday.
Okay. So, yeah, I've only seen the first 3, but thoughts?
Oh, boy. Oh boy, where do I begin? First, I am going to be complimentary again, and I'm going to say this again. Robin and Hawk and Dove look awesome. I can't get over how good those costumes are. I wish Robin's red, green, and yellow on there were a little brighter, but especially considering that Hawk and Dove's red and blue on their costumes respectively is brighter. But other than that, the three of them look like superheroes. You know, God forbid superheroes look like superheroes on a superhero show.
Right.
But, so yeah, that's awesome. I'm still a fan of the casting on everything. Man, it's the writing on that show. I haven't watched the 4th episode yet, and I will watch it because, spoiler alert, the Doom Patrol is in it. And, like, when I say I love DC, I mean, I love the Doom Patrol. The Doom Patrol are so rad. And you can't be a Titans nerd and not have love for the Doom Patrol anyway. But, the pictures that I've gotten to see for the Doom Patrol, they look great. You know, Elastigirl looks great. Robot Man looks great. Negative Man looks great. It's super cool to see them live action. I never thought I'd see them live action to begin with. So, that's boss. So I will absolutely watch the 4th episode. But man, so I'm going to say it, because that 2nd episode... I think is it the 2nd episode with Hawk and Dove, or is that the 3rd episode?
No, I think the 2nd one's Hawk and Dove.
It's the 2nd one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for those of you guys who don't know who Hawk and Dove is, because they don't really give a ton of background on them in the episode, in the comics, Hawk and Dove are the agents of order and chaos. Dove being the agent of order, Hawk being the agent of chaos. Hawk is an absolutely aggressive, violent dude. And Dove, this version of Dove, Dawn Granger, because she's the 2nd Dove, which I wonder if they'll get into, is a pacifist and is there to balance out the natural predilection to rage that Hawk has. Hank's brother Don was the original Dove. Don died and all that, and yeah. But it's hard for me to watch a character who is supposed to be the balance to Hawk's rage and violence be just as violent as him. It's even harder for me to see a character like Hawk be this violent, raged out dude and then see Robin saving him by stabbing a dude in the dick. Why is Robin more violent than Hawk? I don't understand the writing of this show. Jeff Johns, you were, in the early 2000s, you were the guy that DC nerds loved because you were restoring so many classic characters to their beautiful luster, and you were taking characters who needed a leg up and needed the rub and putting them in these great places. And with the disillusion of the original Young Justice and the Titans, you gave us a new Teen Titans and the Outsiders with all these characters that all of us love. And you and 𝘾𝙢𝙢𝙞𝙀 are having Robin stab dudes in the junk. I don't get it.
It's meta.
See?
Where else is Dick supposed to stab him?
Right? No, so it's just... I don't know. I'm still going to stick with it.
You want to see where it goes.
I do. A buddy of mine had said, once you get past the 5th episode and you're still watching it, you're just hate watching it. And I'm afraid of getting to that point. So hopefully it doesn't happen.
Well, you could do like I've done with certain movies where you're like, it can't get any worse.
Do you know how
but sometimes they do.
Do you know how many times I've said that? Yeah. And I'm proven wrong? So no, I don't want to say that. It's tough because I want to believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel with this show. Because the first couple issues of New Teen Titans from 1980, which is what this team is based on, Raven brings the team together to help face the impending doom of her father, Trigon the Terrible. And, it's this big dark thing that's going on. Then you've got the introduction of Deathstroke at the same time. So there's a lot of dark stuff happening, especially with a lot of those characters. And, Robin, at that point in the comics, it's where things are kind of really starting to get strained between he and Batman. Batman has formed the Outsiders already at this point. He's left the Justice League. He's not working with the League anymore. He's really not working with Robin anymore. So all these characters are in tough places. And I understand that Geoff Johns and Akiva Goldsman are trying to write a superhero show where there is a realistic look at the strain of being a vigilante. With Robin, it's the emotional strain. With Hawk and Dove, it's the physical strain, as you see in that episode, and they're ready to get out of this life. But it's done so ham-fisted, and it's done so, edgelord, almost, that I don't know. It's hard to take it seriously. The one bright spot I do have to say with that Hawk and Dove episode, because the girl who's playing Raven, I like how they handle her. She's a kid. It works. When I was growing up, Raven was very much late teens sort of teenager, and they've really turned Raven into a kid because of the Teen Titans cartoon. But I loved seeing the framed photo in the background of Robin, of Dick and Dawn and Hank and who we have yet to see, Donna Troy. So she's in that picture, and that's really cool. So hopefully we get to see her sooner rather than later. I know she's in this season, but I'm hanging on to hope with this. We're getting Cyborg.
Oh, we are?
Mm-hmm. Cyborg's going to be on the show.
Okay. I hadn't heard that yet.
We're getting Jason Todd, and while that doesn't really matter to me, the sooner we get to Jason Todd, the sooner we can kill him.
Well, and in this show, they're more than likely about to do it.
Jesus, I know. So I don't know. I'm sticking with it because I'm really hoping there's a light at the end of the tunnel for these characters. I can't watch this and have everything be this dark, because if Deathstroke shows up or if Trigon shows up, it's not just dark, man. You haven't paid the fucking light bill.
Damn.
So
well, and they're hinting, or maybe not even really hinting, pretty heavily at Trigon. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen anything, but of course it's just the first 3 episodes yet as to whether or not we'll get Deathstroke.
Yeah.
And of course, with him showing up at the end of Justice League with Luthor.
Yeah.
Are we even going to see Deathstroke? So
well, we're getting a Cyborg, so I don't think DC really cares. much like there's a million imprints, there's a million live action iterations.
But under that theory, then we should get Batman on TV series.
You'll never get Batman on TV.
I know you like to say it. Yeah.
I don't like to say it. It's a fact, dude. You got Robin on Titans, and you got Batwoman in Supergirl. Who do you not have? As long as people are paying to see Batman live action, you'll never get Batman.
Which, considering that we've had several Superman shows, and
mm-hmm.
Superman is a big draw,
mm-hmm.
it still baffles me.
Because Batman, as far as merch goes, will always make more money than Superman.
Huh.
I've said it before on the show. The only 2 comics in the industry that can be the worst comics ever and will still make more money than any other comic are Batman and X-Men. They can have the worst creators on there, the worst stories going on, and they will always be the biggest sellers in superhero comics.
Well, alright, since we're talking about a show that maybe you might like to see canceled if things don't change.
I don't want to see anybody lose their job.
Well, no, not about that, but yeah. Speaking of losing jobs, then, Iron Fist and Luke Cage have been canceled.
I'm okay with that.
I think the way they ended those seasons, it would have been strange and interesting to see how they would have brought those characters back together again.
Well,
but I definitely, I'm not horribly upset with Iron Fist being canceled, though I definitely would have liked to have seen those characters show up more on some of the others.
I said I'm okay with that. You're supposed to ask me why would you be okay with that?
Well, I'm sorry. I wasn't reading the script. Let me go back.
Thank you.
TJ, why are you okay with that?
It's funny that you should ask. Because now you've got Mike Coulter and Finn Jones, 2 actors who played superpowered beings without a job. Would that make them heroes for hire?
Yeah, that's been hinted around that, and Daughters of the Dragon.
That's why I don't mind the shows getting canceled. If you can figure out how to get these 2 characters to resonate better, and Power Man, Luke Cage resonated very well. It was really, really good. So I'm not saying that it was bad. Iron Fist needed work, but it was definitely on the upswing from everything that I know about season 2.
Season 2 was better.
You know, again, this goes back to what they did in the 70s. Power Man's book wasn't doing well. Iron Fist's book was getting canceled. What did they do? Put them together.
But see, and G brought this up. He and I were talking about this, I think, on last week's episode, 1 or 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week's. The problem is the way that they've ended both of those series. How do you do that in a series where the 2 of them are now together? Like, it will require some serious work and writing to tailor those stories in such a way that you actually can bring these characters back to a point where...
It's a good thing that they hire good writers.
Well, you'll get some argument from that on people about Iron Fist.
For sure. That's their job. Their job is to craft a story and to make it make sense. Stories can make sense. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be good or bad, but your mileage may vary on that. But if the Disney streaming service is looking to take these characters and put them in shows that strictly feel like it's for them, of course you're going to do Heroes for Hire, because Luke Cage was Netflix and Iron Fist was Netflix. But this isn't going to be the all-new Luke Cage and the all-new Iron Fist. If you want people to tune into that subscription service who are feeling a little burnt by those shows getting canceled, it's absolutely Power Man and Iron Fist Heroes for Hire.
Oh, so you're saying they just basically reboot the characters?
You don't even reboot the characters. Continue on.
Yeah, but continuing from that point?
Absolutely. Time you can pick up. It's not hard.
I'm not saying it's hard, but it would require quite a bit of story to get these characters in a position where they're back and working together.
That's the point of these programs, is storytelling.
Yeah, I'm talking like an entire season almost with just for each of these characters.
Season to see Daredevil in a costume.
Don't get me started on that. Because we spent the last season with him not in it. And somebody else in it.
Yeah. So
who we would have loved to have seen in their thing, and we don't get, so.
No, I part of the problem with a lot of this is everybody there's a sense of instant gratification, and everybody wants the thing to be the thing that they know in their head because they love that thing. But you started reading it at a certain point, too, where you had to get to that. Mm-hmm. So I have no problem with the shows taking their time, and especially with the way both Luke Cage and Iron Fist ended. Take your time with the story.
Well, the only reason I guess I'm annoyed with how that went down is because with Iron Fist and Luke Cage being canceled, now it's questionable as to whether or not Daredevil is going to get another season. I think they said that based on statistics that the viewership has gone down significantly percentage-wise from seasons 1 and 2. So are we even going to get a season 4 of Daredevil? So to not get that payoff, to have Bullseye in there and not get that payoff, that's unfortunate.
I don't know about that. Bigger picture, man. Movie.
You think we're going to get a movie?
I don't think we're not going to get one. I think anything is possible at this point. And with things wrapping up for Cap and for Iron Man and for Thor and all these other characters...
You think we could see some of these characters go from streaming services to...
Why not?
Yeah,
why not have
that could truly be cool.
The best Marvel team-up movie ever in Spider-Man and Daredevil teaming up against the Kingpin? Kingpin debuted in Amazing Spider-Man issue 51. He was a Spider-Man villain for years until Frank Miller got him in Daredevil.
Well, and the way they handled Kingpin in this last season of Daredevil was phenomenal.
Look, we started this episode with me talking about Brian Micheal Bendis. In, I think it's Ultimate Spider-Man, gosh, I think it's like issue 9 or 10. There's a scene where Spider-Man, and in the Ultimate Universe, Peter is very much a kid. He's very much, like a 14, 15-year-old kid. He confronts the Kingpin, and the first thing he says is, oh, wait, hang on 1 second. I just gotta get something. And he pulls out a piece of paper, and he unfolds it, and he says to the Kingpin, you're a big fat fatty of a fat man. And then hits him with yo mama jokes. Tell me you don't want to see Tom Holland do that on screen to Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin.
But I don't think we'd ever get that. As much as that would be funny, I don't think
the point that I'm making is there is such a youthful exuberance to Tom Holland's portrayal as Spider-Man.
As it should be.
That, not always. There should be a sense of humor, but he is youthful in a way that no other Spider-Man has been. It feels like a real kid.
Yeah.
I want his youthful exuberance to play off of the pain that Matt has as Daredevil in his existence as a whole, because Spider-Man and Kingpin and Daredevil are all very different characters, but they are all so very much New Yorkers. And in the same way that Power Man is, in the same way that Iron Fist is, but all from very, very, very different worlds. And some of them from similar worlds, just taking different avenues. I think there's a lot to be told storytelling-wise. I don't think that it's a risk to bring these characters up. I think you just have to be willing to, take risks on characters that you might have viewed initially as failures because viewership is down, and do something of substance. Do something that makes people care.
Well, here's something that's a little bit of a sidetrack, maybe a little bit of a rabbit hole. Speaking of taking risks on characters, I find this disappointing because I had kind of hoped, I know off and on there were rumors that they might be working or might be considering on working on a Moon Knight series. I always thought that would be cool. I always thought that was kind of a cool and interesting character that I would have liked to have seen brought to life.
So, let me at least say this. I love Moon Knight. Moon Knight is super, super cool, okay? I got a buddy of mine back home who says that he doesn't like Moon Knight because he looks like he should be in Antarctica stopping seal clubbers with that costume. I like Moon Knight. I think the concept is really cool. I think Mark Spector is a really cool character. The whole, gifts of Khonshu and all that. It's super, super, super cool. The problem with Moon Knight is all of the best writers in comics write him, and the books still get canceled.
Wow. So there's just not enough.
No, but that's the problem. Everybody talks about how they love Moon Knight. Brian Micheal Bendis wrote him. It ended. Matt Fraction wrote it. It ended. Warren Ellis wrote it. It ended. And it's not like it ended because the series was over. The books either get canceled or editorial opts not to continue on.
Are they just not making the bucks, or? I mean, you would think typically that'd probably be the reason they would cancel them.
Sure, but here's the problem. Before I said, no matter how bad the books can be, nothing sells like Batman and X-Men, right?
Yeah.
The problem is comparing other book sales to Batman and X-Men.
Well, true.
You can't compare a Hawk and Dove monthly or a Green Lantern monthly to Batman. In the same way that you can't compare an Iron Fist monthly to X-Men. At one point there's an amazing Ed Brubaker, Matt Fraction, Immortal Iron Fist series at Marvel. David Aja was the artist on it. Amazing, amazing, amazing book. That wasn't doing the numbers that X-Men books were doing. It was a better book, though. I like Moon Knight. I think that character is cool. I think he's even cooler when he's fucking nuts. Because it's a character with personality disorder. He's insane. Yep. That makes the character cool.
Well, and that's what makes it more interesting, too.
And it's better. And I don't necessarily... You can do funny things with the fact that he's insane, but I don't know if I would necessarily play it up for laughs the way everybody plays Deadpool's insanity up for laughs.
No. See, that's why I was excited about the idea of Marvel, of Netflix doing it. Because the Netflix stuff has been, handling this kind of stuff, all very serious, very intense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff should be, but what's nice too is, Luke Cage's intense is different than Jessica Jones's intense, is different than Daredevil's, and is different than Iron Fist's. And Iron Fist's intensity isn't really that intense, So,
I think still my favorite thing from Defenders, I think it was in Defenders, was when, they're talking about being the immortal Iron Fist, and he's like, yeah, he's telling everybody that. Yeah. It's one of those little funny moments that was just great.
So, I don't know. I mean, look, all jokes aside, would I love to see Moon Knight? Sure. The problem, too, with Moon Knight is people who don't know this material are just going to look at that and say, oh, well, there's Marvel's version of Batman on screen. I mean, between the moon ship, the moon blades that he has, those little crescent boomerangs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've seen that comparison before, too. It's...
so it's one of those things. I mean, it's why Cap and Bucky on screen, it's not adult hero and kid sidekick. Because then it just becomes Batman and Robin.
Good point. But they handled that pretty well.
Oh, absolutely they did.
All right. Well, I know you wanted to mention Sabrina. That's not one I've watched yet. I've heard good things.
So much fun. If you're not watching it, you should. If you weren't reading the Sabrina comic, Chilling Tales of Sabrina, from Archie, you were missing out on, at that point, one of the best horror books on the racks. It was super, super fun. I don't think the show is as good as the movie, as the series, but that doesn't matter. You don't have to go into this with any previous knowledge of this. All you need to know is this isn't Sabrina the Teenage Witch comics. It's not the Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina the Teenage Witch show, and that's fine. If you like classic horror, you're gonna love this. If you dig Easter eggs, you're gonna love this. The cast is just so good. Kiernan Shipka playing Sabrina. I've never seen her in anything before. I heard that she was a kid on Mad Men. She's great. She's super fun. She's a great character. Lucy Davis and Miranda Otto are the aunts. They're Hilda and Zelda. They're awesome. Lucy Davis was Etta Candy in Wonder Woman. She was previously in Shaun of the Dead. Miranda Otto, of course, from Lord of the Rings. And then the high priest for the Church of Night that they're in is played by Robert Coyle. And he's so good. And so, deliciously evil, which is a lot of fun. And I didn't realize, there was, I don't know if you guys remember the show, there was a show in the early 2000s from the BBC called Coupling. It was their version of Friends.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Oh, it was great. He was the weird, goofy guy, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't get over it, but I totally don't get any Jeff vibes out of him because he's so good on this.
At this point, if we had somebody editing the video, it would be where they entered, "Hi, my name is Jeff."
Right?
All right, I know we're about to hit the end of or we're getting real close to the end of the hour here, so we'll wrap it up with a couple other, we'll say Marvel, Disney streaming topics, just real briefly, because there's not a lot of information yet.
We should do a flash round.
I'm trying to think of how quickly I can talk.
We don't have enough sound effects.
Yeah, right? No, so rumors about a Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series.
I'm in.
I would love to see it.
I'm in.
Absolutely. And then also Scarlet Witch and Loki. I'm not sure from what I was reading if that was supposed to be separate shows or
They're
a show.
Separate shows.
Okay. And then I guess with Scarlet Witch, Vision will go in tow, and I'm even hearing rumors that Paul Bettany will be playing Vision.
Cool.
So
do the whole 80s 12 issues Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries. Totally. If you just adapt all of that, I'm in there like swimwear. I'm happy. Loki is a license to print money. Let's make dreams come true. What was the other one?
Well, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
And then I said I'm super down for that.
But totally. What would you want to see from that? Like,
fighting to see who's Steve's real best friend. Fighting to see who's the better adult sidekick. No, all jokes aside, and this is just a theory of mine, I've previously said that just because these actors' contracts are ending, it doesn't mean you need to kill off the characters. Some of them can just walk away.
Well, but not only that, you can have other actors play the parts. How many people have we had play James Bond?
Totally.
How many people have we had play Superman or Batman? Like, audiences can follow along with, oh, okay, this is a new actor taking over the role.
Yeah. But there's also an unfair standard set by how good Chris Evans is, let's be real.
Well,
but
these actors who have come in and have played these parts definitely have basically set aside, shoes that need to be filled.
The truth is, I think there's a difference between how many dudes have played Batman and the fact that Captain America's fucking perfect. But what I would do with a Falcon Winter Soldier TV show is the fallout from the death of Captain America.
Yeah, that could make sense. Yeah.
That's what I would do. And by the end of the series, you have one of them become the new Captain America.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But I also don't want that because I don't necessarily want Cap killed off.
Well, granted, but I think they're going in that direction because they know that Chris Evans is kind of done with the role.
Now, here's the other thing that I would do. And hear me out on how you do a Falcon Winter Soldier show. I know we only got a few minutes, but hear me out on this. You ready?
All right.
Okay. They're both Captain America. You got to start out the show with Bucky having the shield. Bucky's Cap. This is too much for him.
Oh, and by somewhere
by the end, not even by the end, by at least maybe 2 episodes before it ends,
he's passed it on.
He gives it to Sam. Sam's the guy for the role. Bucky. Okay. Everybody loves this idea of Nightwing being Batman. Dick doesn't want to be Batman. He wanted to be Batman as a kid. He knows who he is. He's Nightwing. There's always been this really cool idea that Tim grows up to becoming Batman, and Dick still stays as Nightwing. And stories like that were always kind of cool. Bucky is not meant to be Captain America long term. He was Cap for a while, and it was cool, especially during like the post Civil War stuff, like when the pro registration team is hunting down all the fugitives, and like Doctor Strange is hiding Spidey and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and all them, and Bucky is Cap and he's with the Resistance. So that's really cool. That's a lot of fun, and it makes Bucky more interesting. But Bucky can't be Cap long term. But Falcon is a guy who can be Cap long term. And that could be a lot of fun. Especially seeing him in a red, white, and blue costume with red wings, with the shield. And I think there's something to be said for the world we're living in right now, where the next Cap gets to be someone who doesn't look like Steve, and there are kids who can see that and say, oh, I can be that too. I think that's really important, especially with how divided everything is. Everything that Steve Rogers stands for is so much more than what Captain America is. Steve, everybody loves Steve Rogers, and Steve is a progressive as someone who came from the 40s.
Yeah.
That's so important, and so often that seems to get lost because everybody wants to co-opt Captain America for what they are. And the idea of Falcon being Cap, and I had said it, a multitude of episodes ago, that they dropped the ball having Sam as Captain America for his first issue when Falcon is in a movie. There should have been a Falcon issue 1, because that's so important at that point. But there's nothing wrong with Sam being Cap. I think timing was weird at that point. But Sam as Cap in a show and then eventually a movie, that's a, grand slam right there. So yeah, that's what I would do.
All right.
For sure.
So since you wanted a lightning round, something you said gave me an idea.
All right.
as quickly as you can before we do our final wrap-up, since we're seeing that Captain Marvel is introducing the Skrulls.
Yes.
And we know that's taking place back in the 90s, the heyday of Blockbuster.
Yes.
Which characters do you think will be outed as Skrulls in the next Avengers movie? Or even in Captain Marvel. Just a quick list of the ones you think will be outed as Skrulls.
That's a good question. All right. Pepper Potts. Pepper's going to be a Skrull. You know what? Name the characters. I'll say Skrull or not Skrull.
Oh, no, don't do that to me.
Come on. Come on.
All right. Captain America.
Not a Skrull.
You don't think he'll be a Skrull?
Not at all.
Okay. Bucky Barnes.
No, too much is centered around him for him to be a Skrull.
Okay. Tony Stark.
Not a Skrull.
I wouldn't think he would be either.
No.
Okay, so Pepper Potts then.
Pepper, totally a Skrull. And that's going to be fun, too, because it's going to break Tony's heart.
War Machine.
Not a Skrull. He's been through too much.
Okay. Let's see, where do I want to go next? Hulk.
Ooh, I could see it.
Really?
I could see it. It probably won't happen, but I could see it.
Okay.
Okay.
General... Oh, why am I...
Thunderbolt Ross?
Yeah, Thunderbolt
Totally a
Ross.
Skrull.
Yeah. Totally a Skrull.
Totally a Skrull.
All right. Falcon.
It would be cool having him be a Skrull, but no.
Okay. I'm going to kind of skip the Ant-Man characters because I really don't think that any of those fit for Skrulls other than maybe Wasp?
Hank Pym.
Well, I initially thought that, but then I thought that's a little bit... Because they're making it look like the Skrulls are showing up in the 90s, or showing up around the time that Captain Marvel...
How old was Hank Pym in the 90s?
That's... Yeah, I'm kind of thinking... Well, no, because they replaced. So, yeah, okay. All right, Hank. Okay. I don't know, just the way those characters were, it didn't seem to... I was thinking maybe his daughter, Hope.
Because now, with the list that I've had that makes too many females as Skrulls, that's...
Okay. Well, but we haven't gone through everything yet. Let's see, where was I? Now I gotta think. Spidey.
No way.
They don't want to give rights to Sony for Skrulls.
Right?
Let's see, where else?
But that's not to say that there aren't people in Peter's life that aren't Skrulls.
Oh, are we going with the Aunt May?
No, I wouldn't do that to May. She's been through enough, that poor woman.
Yeah, right?
That poor, beautiful woman.
Oh, let's see.
I love you, Marissa Tomei. I hope you're listening. No, but what about MJ?
Ooh.
Right?
Okay.
Weird enough. But again, grasping at straws at that one. Hawkeye.
You think would be?
Never know.
Oh, Fury.
Maybe.
Scarlet Witch. Or not Scarlet Witch, sorry. Well, okay, Scarlet Witch. I don't think Scarlet Witch would be.
No.
But Black Widow was the other one I was going. Not Scarlet Witch, but Black Widow.
That would be pretty gnarly. It would mirror when we found out that Jessica Drew in New Avengers, Spider-Woman was a Skrull from issue 1. Like 30 issues, 40 issues, we're reading her, and we find out that she's a Skrull since issue 1.
What about any of the Guardians?
Who's still alive?
Not very many, huh?
Yeah, right?
Spoiler alert! It's supposed to be a lightning round. You're supposed to go quick.
I know, right? No, but I'll tell you, Hawkeye would be cool as a Skrull, and it would be even cooler if we get the moment from Secret Invasion when the missing heroes see their Skrull counterparts, and instead of seeing Hawkeye, we see Clint Barton as Ronin. So that would be really cool.
That would be kind of cool.
So yeah, there you go.
Thor.
No way.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see how that would make sense with the way the story's been.
How is he lifting the hammer?
What about Loki?
That would be a lot of fun, but I see him more finding a way to work with them for his own gain.
Oh, yeah, true enough. Okay, well,
Yeah.
unless there's another one you can think of, I think we'll cut it there for the week.
No, but we'll get the Fantastic Four out of this.
A Marvel Fantastic Four.
Skrulls aren't going to get introduced, and we're not getting the FF. Remember, this is the end. The next Infinity War, that's the end of so many of these character stories. We got to introduce the Fantastic Four and the X-Men at some point.
Yeah, that deal is still getting finalized.
And
so.
it will be. You don't get the Skrulls on good faith because they're Fantastic Four characters.
Right.
You don't get them on good faith and not, play into good faith.
All right.
So, if John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are listening, y'all gotta play Reed and Sue.
So on that note, we're going to cut it off for the week. Thanks for sticking with us. As always, please, go ahead and like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I like to say, if you like what you've heard, share it out with a friend. If you don't like what you've heard, share it out with somebody you don't like.
I like that. Well done. Adios, amigos.